Hi, this is Pamela Wirth with the Hello Health Encourage Your Wellness podcast. And today I have Robyn Spangler, who is a functional dietitian nutritionist. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Robyn, your passions in food and lifestyle as medicine, you have gone through a personal battle and triumph with psoriasis. And you obviously, through the Clear Skin Lab, have been doing a wonderful group of things trying to help people with different skin issues. So, maybe touch a little bit about kind of your background and how you approach and when someone comes to you with a challenge, kind of what your methodology is.
Yeah. Well, it all started for me. The reason I'm passionate about this work is because back in college, when I was 20, I got diagnosed with psoriasis, which was full body. I mean, never a great time to be covered in scaly skin spots, but that was me in my 20s. And I was actually studying to be a dietitian at the time. So I thought I was living this healthiest lifestyle, and then my skin just blew up. And I spent 2 years going to dermatologists, seeing the experts, doing the creams, the topicals, the prednisone, the typical approach. And after 2 years, they basically cut me off of prednisone and said, that's no longer an option for you. Your only option is an immunosuppressant drug for the rest of your life. And now at that point, I was 22 in grad school, and I just didn't want to go that route, and I didn't understand why this was happening. And that's just how my brain has always worked. I want to understand why. And so at the time, I was actually at a school that taught some about functional medicine, functional nutrition. And so I started doing research on psoriasis and nutrition and what I could do from an inside out approach. And long story short, I implemented changes and researched a ton and was able to clear my skin within 3 months. And that completely changed the trajectory of my own life, but also my career. And that is what has really driven my passion for working in the skin space and helping people solve chronic skin issues with a root cause approach. And that's what we do.
Oh, I love that. And, that's really how I got into what I'm doing is because I kept saying, why? I mean, there's obviously something that triggers the body to respond the way that it's responding. So tell us a little bit about when people first come to you. What's your approach? What do you like to
Yeah,
do with and
our
kind of,
approach is definitely different. It is not conventional in any way. We take a very personalized approach. So just to give you a big picture overview, when someone comes into our services, we actually ask for 6 months. And the reason is because this is not a quick fix. I know when it comes to skin, we want it gone yesterday and we want it to be one supplement or one topical. That's just not actually how the body does the healing. And so we ask for 6 months. And within that, we do a variety of labs from stool tests to urine tests to hair tests and comprehensive blood labs. And our team takes a deep dive into those lab results, plus a big history on the individual. And we put together a customized plan. And then that is all based on data. And then we are working with them to modify and tweak things over that 6 months, watching obviously how the skin heals, but also sometimes other symptoms. And the root place that we start is actually cellular healing. And I often describe this as an analogy of, let's say, your body has millions of cells, and we want them to be nice and plump and juicy like a grape with healthy grape skin versus being shriveled up like a raisin. And that is completely dismissed in conventional care because we go straight to birth control, antibiotics, spironolactone, or Accutane. But cellular damage is a huge root cause issue for chronic skin issues. And that is where we start with minerals, nutrition changes. And sometimes we're dealing with iron toxicity or something else that's going on. And that's where it's individualized. There's not a standard protocol I can say that we do with everyone because in our professional opinion, it needs to be personalized.
and I love that. That's really what had helped us with our family too, was taking a look at the different labs and whether or not there's any allergies, whether or not there's the presence of any infection, the presence of any deficiencies in terms of vitamins. And um, so, do you
Yep.
find that how many
And
tests you'd like to start with, or is there a certain
yeah, good question. We typically start with a stool test because there's a huge connection between what's going on in the gut and how that triggers the immune system, which might be inflaming the skin. We see H. pylori infections, parasites, all sorts of what we call more bad bacteria in the gut that's triggering the skin. We also see sometimes a lack of good bacteria and protective bacteria that can also impact the skin. And what's cool about this is an area that is really emerging in with more research because it's kind of in its infancy with good data out there on what probiotics help and what infections can cause skin issues. But I mean, we've been in this space for over a decade, so we've definitely seen lots of clinical patterns over the years. And for that reason, it's standard for us to look at the gut when there's skin issues. We will also look at a hair tissue mineral analysis, and this gives us an insight into how their is actually using minerals, which essentially run the body, if I'm being real. And we have minerals that allow hormones to be made and trigger hormones and help our immune system and truly everything. So when we talk about cellular healing, we have to have really good mineral status. And unfortunately, because of today's environment with stress levels and our soil being depleted, it's harder to have optimal mineral status as an adult or a human in this world. A third test that we'll look at is a loaded iodine test. This is somewhat controversial because a lot of people are under the false belief that iodine causes skin issues, but I would professionally disagree with that. And there's reasons that theory is out there, but we actually want to look for iodine deficiencies, and we do that in a very specific way with specific testing. And then the last thing that we'll look at is a very comprehensive blood panel. This is beyond the standard labs that you're probably getting at your doctor's office. This is deep into lots of different minerals and different enzymes that are kind of telling us more about different pathways that can cause skin issues. And so we put all of that data together, and then we have a better picture of, with the person in front of us, what mechanism or oftentimes multiple mechanisms at once are causing skin issues for this person. And then that allows us to create a customized plan that in the long run gets results faster because we're just getting right to the point.
No, that's wonderful. What about detoxing? What do you kind of look at for that? Because that's a big part of this overall load causing a lot of inflammation in people's lives. And it can be environmental, it can be,
Mhm.
whether or not you're methylating properly. What does that kind of look like for you?
Great question. Great question. Detoxing is an important system that we need to have working. The question we want to ask is, why isn't someone detoxing properly? Because while you definitely could argue we should have the it built-in systems, we know that for a lot of reasons that is congested for people or that is not working optimally. And we can definitely throw in genetic factors with MTHFR or other genetic SNPs that make people vulnerable to not detoxing well. And so when we're working with clients, the last thing we want to do is just jump into a detox of any sort, whether that's a gut detox or a liver detox or lymph system or kidneys. Because if you haven't yet done cellular repair, or you haven't fixed poor metabolic health, or you haven't opened up certain exit pathways, all you're going to do is circulate whatever it is you're trying to get rid of, metals, iron, pathogens, and then it's not going to leave the body like it needs to. So when it comes to detoxification, it's definitely an important system that needs assessed, but we want to be cautious in how we're approaching it so that it's actually doing long term. It's having an advantage long term and not just getting someone stuck in the cycle, which is then protocol and you feel better, and then protocol and then you feel better. And then things just come back, in a cycle because you're not actually opening things in the right way.
No, that's wonderful. Now, you also founded an electrolyte formula. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so RAYVI is the product company that is mineral based. It is a electrolyte powder that is I as a dietitian, I intentionally formulated it for to have bioavailable nutrients, meaning these forms of the minerals are well absorbed by the gut. And how this came about is I've been a dietitian for over 10 years and working in clinical practice. I used minerals with clients and I gave them recipes on how to do this with coconut water or other products. And what I found was there was a lack in the market of electrolytes and mineral products. There was a lack of basically something that fit all the pieces that I wanted. It needed to be real food based. It needed to have bioavailable nutrients, not the junk that you're just going to pee out. It needed to have a good dose so that it was actually doing something. Half the time in a lot of those brands, you'll see a tiny amount on the label, but it doesn't actually do much. And so I wanted this all to be in one product that did make minerals easier for people and had a positive effect that actually did something in the body. And that is where RAYVI was born.
No, that's super. Um, a lot of people get conflicting information about, obviously, and I'm a big believer too, healing the inside out. The wrinkles will go away, the skin will clear up. You have a better glow about you. You feel better. What about anything topical? Do you have any favorite brands that you use or suggest or don't suggest? Or because I'm sure that's going to be something people are thinking about as well.
Yep. And that is most of the time the first place people think, the first area they try things with is topicals, which makes sense, right? We're dealing with the skin. And at the Clear Skin Lab, we look at acne healing or skin healing in general with a two-pronged approach, inside out and the outside in. So taking care of your skin barrier, taking care of the topicals that you use, having a consistent skincare routine, yes, that is important. When it comes to brands, I do like Clear Stem. I think that they have really good products, but there's not one shining star that everyone with every skin issue is going to need to go to, especially, when it comes to skin issues. If you've got an infection, that needs addressed. If you've got fungal acne and you've got a fungal infection, that needs addressed. And so even when it comes to topicals, there is an individual piece to it, which is actually why we have an esthetician on our team for those who don't feel like they're getting good care or good recommendations topically. We have someone in that has that expertise to help. I will say, to be honest, most of our clients have been through skin issues for years. So that by the time they get to us, they already feel like they've dialed in their topical routine pretty well. And so most of the time, we're actually mostly focusing on the inside out part. But if they need support there, we have that as well.
That's great. What about favorite diets? There's a lot of discussion around keto, paleo. I think everybody can agree that sugar's bad. Do you have any favorites that you suggest when you're working with people?
When it comes to diet, we don't follow a certain rule book, whether that's keto, vegan, even dairy free, which is probably the most common food that's associated with skin talk. And I want to explain that a bit because when individuals with skin issues go down the Google rabbit hole of nutrition and skin, most of the time they're going to run into some form of an elimination diet. Maybe usually dairy's on that list. Take out dairy, gluten, sugar, soy, chocolate, peanuts. The list can get long. And I disagree with that approach. And trust me, I tried that back in the day. And a lot of our clients have tried that. But here's why that's not the route I would recommend. Because and even if you're truly having reactions to these foods, if you're listening and that you're like, but all these foods make my skin worse, I want you to listen. Because what we're doing with clients is asking the question, why is your body reacting to all those foods? It's not just about the foods we eat, it's the environment that it lands in. And so if you're creating an immune response to a giant list of foods, what's going on with the gut, your metabolic system, your cellular health, your nervous system? All of these systems might make you more reactive to certain foods. And essentially, your body is just overreacting to a normal exposure. And that's if the root cause of that isn't addressed, then what can happen is 5 years, 10 years, now you're reacting to more foods, or now you're reacting to outdoors, to more just exposures in your environment, all because it was kind of a false blame on the food rather than the environment the food's landing in. So with a lot of our clients, we actually don't have a rule book of food eliminations. We try to minimize that. When it comes to the dietary approach we take with clients, it's yes, a real food foundation. We don't want a bunch of junk, bunch of processed foods, but at the same time, we want them to be able to live their life with some freedom and flexibility because the last thing we want is more stress added on in life because of food rules. We know that that is just going to create more stress, which doesn't help the skin at all. And so our job is let's fix the environment of the body so that you have more freedom with food and at the same time teach you how to prioritize nourishment over restriction so that you're still eating in a way that's healthy for skin.
Well, and I think that's super important to acknowledge because like in our situation with our kiddo, once we fixed his gut, um, we were able to reintroduce gluten and dairy again.
Yeah.
We had taken it away while we were fixing things and then slowly brought it back in once his gut was fixed. And he eats all of that now,
Yeah,
many, many
amazing.
years later, and he's fine. So, absolutely kind of getting to the root of why the gut is upset and why the
And
body's inflamed.
And you make a good point that sometimes temporarily removing it to calm down the immune system, because sometimes that's an important step so that honestly, even for mental health, so that you can feel the relief of whatever's going on and then feel like that motivation of things working is a really big deal when it
Mhm.
comes to staying consistent with something.
Is there anything else that I haven't asked you about that you wanted to touch on?
I would say that if someone's listening to this wondering like where do I start with nutrition? I would highly recommend starting to incorporate mineral mocktails into your day. I can share with your audience a free guide on how to do mineral mocktails. It doesn't have to be with RAYVI. There's lots of at-home ways to do it. But the reason is because when I talk about cellular healing, a common step that is just missed by people when they go straight to the fancy stuff like detoxes and gut health is really supporting cellular health. And that a huge part of that is minerals. And so, mineral mocktail is a simple drink you can make every day. I would say 1 to 3 times a day is typically what we say. And it just has certain ingredients that are going to really boost your mineral intake to really speed up that skin healing process. And honestly, a lot of the times they have more energy, they're sleeping better, they're not peeing all day long, even though they're drinking water. So it's just such an easy step that if you're like, what's an easy thing I can do that gets me a quick win? It's mineral mocktails.
So, what are some of your favorite minerals in the mineral mocktails?
Great question. So the reason the mineral mocktail was created is because it does focus on three what we call macro minerals, meaning they're minerals that we have the most of in our body. And so the mineral mocktail recipes that I share in my free guide, the drinks all have high amounts of potassium and it's all food based. So you're not going to overdose. This is not being crazy with supplements. It is potassium, sodium, and magnesium. And it's that ratio that's in all of these drinks. Those are minerals that majority of the population, especially at least in the US, do not get enough of. And because of our stress, we are burning through those like crazy, and our food is not rich enough to replete us at the rate that we need it. So, just adding in mineral mocktails is a way to boost that and kind of try to replete faster than we're depleting.
No, that's great. There's a lot of discussion right now around magnesium. Um, what is your favorite type of magnesium in a mocktail?
Yeah, it would vary between, there's a couple different ones, and this is where it just depends on what the client's experiencing. Magnesium glycinate is probably the most well tolerated. So that would be probably the easiest one. Magnesium malate can also be a really good one, but I wouldn't recommend it for someone that's experiencing more anxiety. Magnesium well, those are the most common two that I would use. There are some that are a little bit more gut focused or kind of like laxative focused if someone's constipated, but those two would be the ones I would recommend in a mocktail. And in our guide, we have brands and recommendations for powders that stir right into a mineral mocktail drink.
That's super. Anything else you want to touch on?
I think those are the biggies.
Okay. That's super, super informative. So thank you so much for your time today. And if people want to find you or a functional specialist near them, do you treat people remotely as well as in person?
We do all remote, actually. We see people all over the United States, and we have also some DIY options if they're not wanting to do one-on-one services. So everything that we offer is at theclearskinlab.com. That's where they can find all of our resources and our offers. I'm on Instagram at Nutrition by Robyn. That's Nutrition by Robyn with a Y, Robyn with a Y. And that's where I do a ton of education and teaching and talking about the skin over on that page all the time.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.